Welcome to day two of Infrastructure Week, which I'm not saying that probably in the right voice. It probably should be like Infrastructure Week, day two. So my name is Adi Tomer. Wow, much louder, thank you. I will quiet down. I direct the Infrastructure and Built Environment portfolio at the Brookings Institution's Metropolitan Policy Program. And I really want to thank all of you for coming here today. This is always an exciting week for many of us. The Brookings team sits on the steering committee for Infrastructure Week. And I believe there are at least 3 other events in town. So we know your time at this exact moment. So we know your time is really valuable, and we appreciate you joining us for this conversation. Before I go any further, I want to make sure to give a huge shout out in particular to the NACO team, Kevin Stone in particular, who's standing in the back. You guys will see him a little bit today. And later this week too. This week's been an awesome partnership between our teams. And of course to our friends at National League of Cities too, who are both participating in the first panel, and you'll meet Brooks in a little bit, but also their team has been really helpful thinking through well, certainly allowing us to use their space while Brookings is fully booked this week, but also great thought partners with us all the time. We have a really engaging set of speakers today, and I am excited for you all to hear the topics that are going to come up, because while we know your time is valuable and we really appreciate you being here, I can promise you that for what other events you do this week, this is going to be a different conversation. Infrastructure is something that is not foreign, certainly to any of us in our day-to-day lives, but in particular if you think about the news. Just in the past 3 to 6 months, we have seen a rash of infrastructure stories that I think typify how most average Americans receive news about infrastructure. Think about the highway fire in metropolitan Atlanta, the hysterics involved around what happened there, yet how quickly the solution appeared, and honestly, how few people in Atlanta were impacted. What just happened, of course, there was another situation last week, but a few weeks back on Southwest Airlines flight. Obviously a tragic situation. At the same time, flying by plane is by far the safest mode of transportation in the country, and we've actually had almost no fatalities for multiple years in a row. So what I think we need to change that conversation about is I want you all to take a minute and think about, how do you think about infrastructure every morning when you wake up? And I think actually most of us are pretty similar here. I wake up, I want to make sure that there's clean running water in the bathroom, right? You don't need to go into more details than that, but we want to make sure there's clean water in the bathroom, right? You want to make sure when you flip the light switch that there's power on, that the gadgets you have plugged in are fully juiced up, because when they're not, it causes real problems for the whole day, right? You want to make sure that you also have gas and electricity in your kitchen so you can prepare breakfast. And you definitely want to make sure, especially those of us who live here in Washington, that there is the broadband into our homes, and therefore the Wi-Fi into our routers is running very smoothly so we can consume as much news as possible, even though we know we're all a little too addicted to our devices. But then here's the real capper on that whole morning, is when we step outside of our homes, whether it's walking back to a garage, going to the nearest bus stop, going to the closest bike share station, or just walking on the sidewalk. We also want to make sure that there's transportation infrastructure that helps us to get to where we want to go. Now, that is an infrastructure system that works for us. And I think we can take it one step further. Not only do I think all of you probably have very similar demands just like that, I think we actually share them for each other. It's an idea that we want every person to wake up in a home that is heated or cooled, that has electricity, that has clean water. These feel like reasonable expectations for our system. And here's when the real sense of gross violation happens. Not when you have an amorphous conversation about funding flows in federal Washington, or some kind of tragic occurrence that actually feels a world away. It's when you hear about an entire proud Michigan city that every single person who lives there cannot shower or drink water. It's when you hear about the housing crisis on the coastal north and southern portion of the coast of California, and a single mother has to buy a house 2 hours away to have housing security, but it leaves that 2-hour commute to her job. It's when you think about entire rural towns and urban neighborhoods where kids are assigned homework that they need to do online, but when they get home, it's not even possible for them to have a broadband connection. That's the stuff that actually rips our hearts out. And it makes it feel like we have not built a built environment that works for everyone. So what I want to posit today that I think you're going to hear throughout these conversations is that we want an inclusive infrastructure system. And when I say we want, I really mean that in a lowercase, qualitative, universal way. We all expect it. We want to have physical access to networks, right? We want electricity and water and broadband and transportation to come directly to where our homes are in the neighborhoods we live in. Second, we want to make sure those services are affordable. It's beyond the pale to expect that what someone does for a living could preclude them from having that foundation to economic opportunity. And third, we want to make sure our infrastructure systems do not put us at risk, not just in the most extreme of circumstances, but on a day-to-day basis and also in the face of a changing climate. Those are the topics we're going to hit on today. And by all accounts, many portions of America are failing by this kind of universal grade. So what do we mean by that? Well, last week, but our Brookings Metro team put out 3 pieces talking about this approach: access, affordability, and risk. And I really do urge you to go check out those blog pieces. You'll be able to consume them during a train ride to your work after this. They're not that long. But there was one statistic among many that really at least hit me after our entire team put them together. And that is this: the lowest quintile of American households by income. So this is tens of millions of households. When you add up their housing plus infrastructure costs, their actual expenses, it outpaces their income for the year. So for all the money they make, once they pay their rent or their mortgage, once they pay down their transportation costs to fill up their car or keep their car maintained, or transit passes, electricity bills, broadband bills, et cetera, they are left with negative dollars. That is not a shared platform for prosperity and goes a long way to explaining how many people are struggling to make it in America today. Now, all is not dour. There is an incredible amount of innovation happening all across the country. There are many leaders who are thinking about how we can do more, and we are really excited to host a huge assortment of, across 3 panels, but a whole bunch of experts from all across the country today to talk to you about both the challenges they see, but also many of the innovations and opportunities they see in their respective focus areas. So with that, I want to actually turn over to a special guest who is not here today, but Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota unfortunately had a scheduling conflict, but wanted to make sure that she could still be here today anyways. So Senator Klobuchar doesn't need much of an introduction, but she both has worked in local government as well, of course, now in national government, the first female senator from Minnesota, and a tireless champion both for inequality issues, but also infrastructure's role in making the world a better place. So with that, let's roll the video from Senator Klobuchar. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Brookings.